From the inside of Luke's Tauntaun, it's the IGN DigiGods. And now, two guys who thought you smelled bad on the outside. It's Wade Major and Mark Kaiser.
The strengthening of...
What are you reading? Hold on. Who sent that timely Star Wars intro in?
Thank you, Brian Swagel. Brian Swagel.
Yes, Brian.
On the inside of Luke's Tauntaun.
Yes.
Wherever that is.
Yes. I really like that one. From the inside of Luke's Tauntaun. What are you reading? What were you reading at the beginning of the show?
I don't know, just more Trump stuff.
Oh. you can't get over that.
No.
We have got so much this week. It's really kind of insane. So we should just
Let's start.
Let's start.
Let's do it.
Dive right into it. We got so much TV.
Oh, should we do TV first?
Let's do TV. We're doing TV first. You know why we have so much TV? This is unbelievable, and I don't know really the reasoning behind this. September represents the traditional start of the fall television season. And so for some reason, everybody, even though it's not anymore, really, it's sort of, it's all year-round television. But they, and cable and everyone else, pay TV, they all do it differently. And Netflix doesn't have any, whole season at a time whenever they want. But I don't know, everybody seems to treat September still as this time when you release gobs of television. And then with gobs of television coming out in September, they release gobs of television, of older television, past seasons on DVD and Blu-ray. It doesn't make any sense. You're overloading people. In fact, did you hear that the guy at the upfronts in New York last week, the guy who runs FX said we're about at saturation point, and everybody's going to start suffering soon because there's just too much TV.
Well, there can never be enough good TV.
No, but what he's saying
especially if you don't have to watch it live.
Too many scripted series. More than there are than can justify the amount spent on them to get these fragmented audience demographics to watch each one.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, if you're a tiny niche cable network,
yeah,
you're going to cater to. See, now it's no longer about getting a show that appeals to a wide population.
Right.
The idea is that if you can get a small but rabid following for your show, that's considered a success. That's how it is now.
It's too bad. Gone are the days of Bonanza, I guess.
Yeah, but you know what? Why wouldn't you want? Would you rather have this amazing? And I know what you're going to say, but I'll say this anyway.
Yeah.
Would you rather have like an amazing, kick-ass, unbelievably great, serial killer show that let's say Dexter. I'm just saying Dexter. I've never seen Dexter. That is people love it, and it really only services maybe a couple million people tops. But it's something that could never be on the broadcast networks, and it's only good enough to be on paid cable because it's so edgy and so out there and so violent and so great. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have the streets of San Francisco?
Streets of San Francisco.
I knew you'd say that.
Yeah.
Like True Detective. True Detective could not exist on CBS or NBC. Okay, no one wants to hear you sing. No one wants to hear you sing a theme song. Keep going away.
Okay. Well, speaking of old TV, Gene Autry Collection 11. Now, Gene Autry, technically not TV per se, but for, the number of people who first were exposed to Gene Autry on TV far outweighs the number of people who actually saw his movies in theaters. So we're going to treat him as TV, because to me he was TV. So this is 4 Gene Autry movies. The Singing Cowboy, Guns and Guitars, Roundup Time in Texas, Springtime in the Rockies. All of them just straight up kind of silly singing cowboy B-movie stuff. Again, better suited to television. And this comes to us from Timeless, who's doing a lot of this stuff. And it's if you're a Gene Autry fan, it'll just tickle the cockles of your heart, whatever that means. But more specifically, as far as television, real made-for-television Western stuff, the complete series, all 76 episodes of The Rebel. Really, a show that I had heard about at a certain point, was somewhat familiar with, because it was kind of in there with Wagon Train and Daniel Boone and that whole scene when television westerns were all the rage. The Rifleman, what are some other ones from that era? You remember any others?
Rifleman. You mean like World War II stuff, like combat?
Gunsmoke. No, Western stuff. Just Western stuff. Anyway,
Have Gun Will Travel.
Yeah, Have Gun Will Travel. That's another one.
Star Wars?
No, not really. Well, anyway, this is the story of Johnny Yuma. What a great name, right? Johnny Yuma is a former Confederate soldier, not something that's all that popular anymore. And this is just about a guy who is, it's really kind of a very introspective show, surprisingly introspective. Guy who had been a Confederate soldier, and he's just wandering the West, looking for, people to defend, things to do, kind of like the Incredible Hulk. It's got kind of a hulky vibe to it, except he doesn't turn into a big green Lou Ferrigno. But he's just trying to get the Civil War out of his system. He's just trying to get all that hell out of his mind and out of his system. And lots of great guest stars from the era show up in this thing, including Leonard Nimoy and Robert Vaughn. Robert Vaughn, all the rage again now that people realize that he is the one and only Napoleon Solo, and that the Armie Hammer doesn't even come close. Not Armie Hammer, the other guy. Armie Hammer plays
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill doesn't even come close. So anyway, 76 episodes of The Rebel, starring Nick Adams as Johnny Yuma. Interesting show, one that I had only heard of, and now I got to experience, and I actually like it. Dig it.
Wait, Elementary is a show on CBS that just keeps going. I don't know who watches the show. The show is fine, I guess. It's kind of a nouveau Sherlock Holmes thing where Johnny Lee Miller plays a modern Sherlock Holmes in New York, and Lucy Liu plays
Watson.
Who plays Watson. And Lucy Liu still looks pretty good. She's got to be in her late 40s. She's got some work done, but she's still very beautiful. You know what? This is one of those CBS shows like what was the one with Simon Baker? Remember the one with Simon Baker, the fixture, the closer, the something or other? It's these shows are so... All these CBS shows are really generic, man. There's nothing going on there.
The problem for this show is that as far as sort of neo-Sherlock Holmesy things go, the whole, Benedict Cumberbatch deal so far outshines it. All the British stuff so far outshines it that it just doesn't really have any traction anymore.
Also, we have... anyway, that was season 3 of Elementary, and I dare you to buy it. Season 10 of Criminal Minds. The only reason why I have any interest in the show is because it gives Joe Mantegna work.
He's so good.
We all love Joe Mantegna. Anyway, this thing just keeps going. Again, it's just another CBS show that's a little bit of cut above the other ones, but really just a function of the performances. Thomas Gibson's in it. Joe Mantegna, of course, is in it, and Shamar Moore, who he's kind of reinvented himself from a soap opera guy to kind of a decent, primetime leading manish type. So, Criminal Minds, it's a better cut of bad meat, I guess. Season 10 of that. We also have the 6th season of The Good Wife. This thing keeps going, although it's starting to slip a little bit. I mean, Juliana Margulies, she has won 2 Emmy Awards for it. So, people are really latching on to her.
It's all about her. It's all about her.
It really is all about her. I mean, Chris Noth is in it, and he's always good.
Great.
And Christine Baranski, who always annoys the hell out of me. Don't like her, but she's in this too. Alan Cumming is in it. They should be glad to have Alan Cumming. So this is season 6. Special features include a couple of featurettes, some deleted scenes, and gag reels. So if you're into The Good Wife, season 6 is for you. The Walking Dead, I think I'm going to call it Wade. The Walking Dead will last 2 more seasons.
Really? You think that's it? Nowhere else for it to go?
Well, here's the thing. There's a prequel series.
It's never been my scene, Walking Dead. I know. Like Corey loves it, and a lot of people love it. I've never gotten the deal.
There's a prequel series called Fear the Walking Dead, which was so boring. The first episode, which I saw, they really got to pick that thing up. It takes place before the zombies came. This one, The Walking Dead, for the season, I feel like it's going to start to kind of grind a little bit. It's really feeling like it's starting to grind now. I mean, how many zombie stories can you tell? But still, people still like it, and it still does well. So I would check out Walking Dead 5th season, or wait 2 seasons and get the full complete series box set.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what you should do.
Which is not going to be far off if it only lasts 2 more seasons.
That's just my guess. Because I feel like it's starting to become a grind.
Ever since Darabont left, it feels...
He left really early on. The fact is that the show kept going, and God love it, because I love zombie stuff. I'm all about zombie stuff. I totally get it. I was never super into The Walking Dead because there weren't enough zombies. It was like people falling in love and walking down empty streets. And I was like, you know what? I just don't care. Anyway, there you go.
All right, so Disney just insists on inflicting their fairy tale obsessions on us in all possible forms. And one of those forms, of course, is Once Upon a Time. which is not per se Disney. It's an ABC show, and it's very dark, and it's convoluted, and it's confusing, and lots of people love it, and I still don't get it. Honestly, I have watched far more of this show than I care to admit. My mother-in-law loves it. Now, this is my mother-in-law, mind you. God love her, but this is my mother-in-law who will literally turn to you 7 or 8 times in the middle of, like, My Dinner with Andre to make sure that she still understands what's going on, okay? Like, let me just so I understand it. Yeah, it's 2 guys talking at a table. There's nothing to follow. It's just 2 guys talking at a table. You're not going to get lost in this plot. It's not a Buñuel film. There are no flashbacks within flashbacks, and there's nothing to. Nobody's throwing you a curveball. It's just 2 guys talking at a table. And yet, once upon a time, which to save my life, I have no idea what's going on. I've watched it about a 20 or 30 episodes, and I can't figure out what's going on or why. It makes no sense to me. And she follows this as if it was like the most linear thing in the world. So different brains, I guess. Anyway, so this is season 4, Once Upon a Time. You know what? I guess I understand why people love it. I actually enjoy the extras a lot more because they're easier to follow. And there's a whole Frozen thing tied in with this, and I'll be damned if I can actually quite figure it out. Anyway, Maleficent and Cruella de Vil are all part of this deal, and they are also part of the deal in The Descendants, Disney's Descendants, which is a Disney Channel thing for kids. And here you've got Kristen Chenoweth playing, basically they're the kids of Maleficent and Cruella de Vil and the Jafar and all the Disney, all the evil Disney villains. Anyway, they're all trying to take over the world for their parents, basically. So it's kind of like they're going. It's sort of like if your parents are watching Once Upon a Time and you don't really understand what's going on, your parents can throw on Descendants, and then the whole family is sucked into the whole Disney fairy tale princess industrial complex, and you'll all go out and buy stuff for each other from the Disney store. I don't know what the plan is, but anyway, that appears to be the deal. And Descendants, not to be confused with the Alexander Payne film with George Clooney, which is outstanding, is directed by Kenny Ortega, who just keeps doing Disney stuff because I guess they're the only ones that give him any work. But that's the same Kenny Ortega, of course, who started his relationship with Disney doing what, Mark? Do you remember?
No.
He directed Newsies.
Newsies?
He directed Newsies. And before I unleash Mark on you again, we have the 11th season of Grey's Anatomy. Oh, my gosh, how I love this show for the first 3 or 4 seasons. And honestly, I just don't know how they've kept this thing going for 11 years. I don't know how some of these shows keep going this long. I don't know how you go this long without recycling stuff. 11 years. I stopped watching it religiously really after about when it kind of moved away from Sundays, which was maybe 3 or 4 years. And I'll try to get into it every once in a while when we get a new season on DVD. And I got to tell you, it just doesn't. It still doesn't hang together for me. Ever since about season 5, it's on fumes. But anyway, there it is, the 11th season, and apparently it's going to get. Is next year the last? Is this season the last one? Have they announced that it's the last for Grey's Anatomy, or is it just the last for him?
Can't end soon enough. Can't end soon enough.
Can't end soon enough. All right, there we go.
Wade, when J.K. Rowling writes a book, it's automatically going to be made into a movie, a TV show, comic book, video game, something, everything. Here we have The Casual Vacancy. This was a 3-episode miniseries on HBO, and now it's on Blu-ray. And I have to say, it's not that great. The book, which I did not read.
Does it have anything to do with Harry Potter?
No.
Nothing Harry Potter about it.
It is modern. It's a modern tale. It takes place in this idyllic English village. But what's going on underneath the surface in this idyllic
Is there anything
English
magic?
village?
Magic, wizards,
It's
warlocks?
magical. It's magical how bored I was watching all the parents and all the adults act like silly buffoons, and the teenagers act like the normal people. Obviously, there's a lot here that has to do with class distinctions and social justice and whatnot. So the idea that you set a movie in a community that looks very peaceful and idyllic on the surface, but actually underneath it, there's, other stuff going on. That's like as old as the hills, man. You got to do better than that. So it does have a good cast. Michael Gambon is in it. Who doesn't love Michael Gambon?
I love Michael Gambon.
He's the Gamboniest.
He's a ham-bone gambone.
Exactly. Good
I
job.
don't know what that means.
I don't know what it means either. Anyway, so the book was not very well received, generally speaking. I think people just want her for Harry Potter, and that's it.
Yeah.
But, I have to say that the writers, it seems as if, from what I know, because I did not read the book, it seems as if the two folks who wrote the book took a lot of liberty with the material, which I guess is their right, because, a book is a book and a movie is a movie. But I just think that if this didn't have J.K. Rowling's name on it, you wouldn't really care as much. So only the super Rowling completists should care about the casual vacancy. Otherwise, forget it. Speaking of forget it, we also have Rookie Blue. It's another one of those stupid shows that just kind of like, it's just another show. Somehow this thing has lasted 5 seasons, and they even have the gall.
Star Trek only lasted 3 seasons, and we have some of these shows go on for 6, 7, 8, 9 years.
They even
with
have
ratings that are like a fraction of what Star Trek's were.
They even have the gall to break this up into volumes. Season 5, Volume 1, folks. Yeah. You will now be ignoring on DVD. It's about these officers, and there's lesbians, and there's other lovers, and there's crimes. Just stop it, leave it alone. Crap. Anyway, Person of Interest. This thing keeps going, man. This thing just keeps going. This is another CBS show that had a bunch of pedigree because it was co-created by J.J. Abrams, and it has a good cast, including Jim Caviezel. Love him. Can't not love him. But otherwise, I just don't see anybody really plugging into this thing. I don't know how it keeps going. Obviously, as we talked about earlier, sometimes all you need for these shows is a small but rabid audience to keep it going, right? And this may be what Person of Interest has, because otherwise, it's don't care.
All right, Mark, I'm going to curse the day that CSI ever came on the air. You know why I'm cursing it?
Because you don't like things.
No, because CSI was the first show that did... It inspired this idea of, hey, if it works in this city, we can push it to this city, and we can push it out. We can just keep expanding it. We can brand this thing into 950 different casts. Now, technically, we could argue that Star Trek was the first one that did that. We could make that case. But each one of those Star Trek shows kind of was, substantially different in orientation. It wasn't just a bunch of different people in a different spaceship in a different suit. They were a little bit different. It wasn't like, oh, CSI this, CSI that, CSI... Next thing, Law and Order, blah, blah, blah. Law and Order this, Law and Order that, Law and Order this. And the latest one in that is NCIS. I love Mark Harmon. I think Mark Harmon's great. The NCIS, which stands for Naval Criminal Investigative Service, is a decent one of those shows. He's the right guy to hold it down. And you know what? Honestly, I mean, the 12th season, which is out now on Blu-ray, is a Best Buy exclusive, with a bonus DVD, which has featurettes and a bunch of other stuff on it. You know what? It's perfectly fine. It's one of those pretty casts. It's a pretty cast, and Mark Harmon is good, and he holds it down, and it's got the whole military angle. It's a little bit different, and fine, it looks good on Blu-ray. And fair enough, 12 years, they've been able to keep that sucker going in an amazing way. But do we really need NCIS Los Angeles? Really?
Yes, we do.
6 years of NCIS Los Angeles? Is that doing anyone any good with Chris O'Donnell and LL Cool J doing the NCIS thing in Los Angeles?
Gives a lot of people work.
Okay, fine. 6 years of this. It's just, it doesn't do anything that NCIS doesn't do better. So if you're a fan of NCIS, I don't know what NCIS Los Angeles does other than to whet your appetite in the middle of the week until the next NCIS. It's your midweek fix or whatever. That said, Mark, God help us. We also now have NCIS New Orleans, the first season. Come on. Seriously?
Here's why. The reason why there's NCIS New Orleans is because there's something, I don't know if it's in the Constitution of the United States, but somehow Scott Bakula needs to work.
Oh, gosh, heaven help us
TV
all.
needs to somehow give Scott Bakula something to do.
I mean, he's the guy. He inherits the 9th Star Trek series. He's way down on the Star Trek line now.
That's
He's
right.
third down on the NCIS line.
Correct.
He's the go-to guy. When you're several generations down and you want to make sure that it rides, you just throw the guy on who's been on TV pretty much every season of some show for the last 27 years.
Yes, here comes Scott Bakula.
Okay,
he's ready to roll.
He's ready to roll. That guy was Robert Conrad for a long time. Like every year there was a Robert Conrad series. Which reminds me, there are several Robert Conrad series that all lasted only a season that I would like to have on DVD. Why is no one putting out The Duke? Do you remember The Duke?
No.
You remember the Duke? Larry
No.
Minetti. Larry Minetti was on this right before he went on to Magnum PI. It was Robert Conrad and Larry Minetti on the Duke. He played a boxer in Chicago. Great theme song, great opening with the L. The bell rings like it's a boxing ring, and it's this great kind of Bill Conti theme. It was a good show, the Duke.
I produced Robert Conrad on a talk show once. He was super cool. Really nice guy.
Super cool. And then there was the spy thing where he's like the James Bondy guy.
Yeah, Melly Mel Steve.
He goes into the
James
into
Bond,
the toy store and he
Star
takes
Wars?
he goes in the toy store and he takes the
Get
elevator
Smart,
down.
really?
Kind of, sort of a Get Smarty thing. Yeah, he had a cool car.
I don't know.
remember the name of that. Well,
You're way more into Robert Conrad than even Robert Conrad's family is into Robert Conrad.
I suppose, maybe, or something. Anyway. Okay.
Are we still doing TV, Wade?
We're still doing TV. There's a ton
my
of TV.
God.
We're
Why
gonna
is there so
plow
much?
through this.
Okay, you know what? Here, you plow through this. Here we go. Mike and Molly, 5th season. I don't know why this thing keeps going when what's her name is Melissa McCarthy is so damn hilarious and everything she does.
Yes.
I love her. She's fantastic.
You see Spy?
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I loved it. It's hilarious.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm waiting
It's
for the Blu-ray.
hilarious. It's so good. You'd love it.
I'm sure I will.
It's great. So Mike and Molly keeps going. You know what? I'd rather have Melissa McCarthy make an extra movie a year than do another season of Mike and Molly. Two Broke Girls. This thing, boy, it's just another. It's just another CBS show. It's very much like that hacky humor that
Melly Mel Steve? Yeah.
the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
It's that really hacky Big Bang Theory. This one, it's very cleverly crafted to get into like that early mid-20s, just out of college. I have to support myself as a waitress kind of vibe. It resonates with the younger folks.
Yep.
But it's just a lot of hack humor, and I was really hoping Kat Dennings would become something great in the movies.
She is in the Thor films.
Huh?
She is in the Thor films. She was in the first one. Yeah.
Was she in the second one?
Isn't she?
Maybe
I can't
she
even remember.
was.
She's the Quipmeister.
Yeah, I know.
She's the quippy character. That's a stock character in Hollywood movies now. Is you need someone. Preferably a nerdy guy or a nerdy girl. Neither of them can be too attractive, but they both have to be charming enough that if they get somebody to love them, the audience will buy it. And they're the Quipmeisters. They're the ones who always have something a little bit sardonic to say.
Lame. Anyway, Blacklist season 2. Blacklist, one of those shows, the NBC show, where season 3 is going to premiere.
Isn't it amazing how he just keeps... This is a guy who, honestly, truly keeps reinventing himself as a TV figure in the strangest ways.
Good for him.
James Spader. It's really odd to me how he does that. He's become that guy.
Now, season 3 has been delayed a week, but it's still going to it's still going to happen. My thing with Blacklist is that season 3, it's either going to... If season 3 is not a great season, the show is going to just start to fade. Because season 3 is that crucial season where either it takes off and becomes the greatest thing ever and it lasts for 6, 7, 8 seasons, or it just sort of starts to fade. So anyway, and there's been some character changes on it too, by the way. So that might piss off some loyal viewers in season 3. We'll see. Robert Greenblatt said some stuff at the TCAs about some characters changing their occupations and whatnot. So mixing it up in mid-run like that is a little bit risky, but we'll see what happens. People love the show mainly because of James Spader, so it could work. So there you go, Blacklist season 2.
We've got The Secret Life of Marilyn Monroe, which is a Lifetime thing. Honestly, at this point, so many actresses have played Marilyn Monroe. So many actors have played the Kennedys on television. You could almost build up a card game based on all the actors who have played those parts alone and play mix and match. It's crazy. This is completely unnecessary, but so is most of the stuff that airs on Lifetime. So as far as Lifetime stuff goes, it's like upper tier, not great. It is elevated immensely by the fact that it has Susan Sarandon in it, playing Marilyn Monroe's mother, and the very good Jeffrey Dean Morgan playing Joe DiMaggio. But otherwise, this thing just is not great. Kelly Garner, I've never heard of. She plays Marilyn Monroe. It's just, it's just more of the same. We've seen this stuff a million times. So strictly for Marilyn Monroe buffs. Power Rangers, Lightspeed Rescue, the complete series. I've lost track of how many Power Rangers series there are. And in point of fact, they're all the same. They really are all the same. The only thing that makes this interesting is that it has a villain who goes by the name of Diabolico. Now,
Like Hispanic. Sounds Hispanic. I am a diabolico.
well, it's
Maybe Italian.
It's kind of obvious. Diabolico. Anyway, 40 episodes. It's just another Power Rangers thing. It's marginally different from the others, but it pretty much follows formula. And then a couple from the old classic era of television, the one that Mark and I mourn for, that we long for, that we yearn for. The Jeffersons and Welcome Back, Kotter. This is season 8 of The Jeffersons, with Sherman Hemsley and Isabel Sanford, and, of course, the great Gabriel Kaplan in the final season of Welcome Back, Kotter.
Gabriel Kaplan? Who calls him Gabriel Kaplan?
I call him Gabriel. He and I, that's how we refer to each other. I'm not going to call him Gabe. He's like a champion poker player now. I'm going to call him Gabriel.
That's all anyone calls him is Gabe.
I'm going to call him Gabriel.
Seems like a different person.
Isn't that funny?
Gabriel Kaplan.
Have you ever tried calling our Andy Klein Andrew? Have you ever called him Andrew?
Andrew Klein.
It's the funniest reaction in the world. Call him Andrew next time you see him. Go, Andrew. Do it. I swear. You have to.
Now, will he not like it or just not answer to it?
You have to do it.
Okay, fine.
You have to do it. You have to do it. It'll be priceless. Anyway, yes. So the final season of Welcome Back, Kotter, which is actually quite good. These shows, sometimes ran out of steam in their last few years, and you could feel them on fumes and completely running out of ideas, and you could tell that the writing staff was just shattering and completely in transition to other shows. But this one wasn't. This is still part of that great 70s era. This show knew exactly when to make its exit, and everybody was going on to do other things, especially Travolta, who would go on to be. He'd already made movies. He'd already done Grease and Saturday Night Fever, so he was the man. And the Jeffersons, of course, season 8 is actually running a little bit thin, but still good. It's still a good year. So I would recommend both of these. If you're not, if you don't already have the full seasons, the full series, if you're still going season by season, definitely invest in some good 70s television when times were good.
Wait, we're still doing television. Oh, my God. It's unbelievable.
Hey.
Okay, we have America's Test Kitchen. I love this disc because I love all the America's Test Kitchen discs. This is 26 episodes on 4 DVDs. As you probably can guess, I tend to like the recipes that are more dessert-based, and we do get some here, though not as much as I would have liked, which, again, is not the fault of the DVD. I've not made anything from this because an almond cake is fine. Gluten, there's a thing here for gluten-free cookies, and the whole gluten-free thing is, I think, a bunch of crap. I mean, honestly, for 2,000 years, mankind has been just fine with gluten. There's no gluten-free anything. Stop that. I mean, there's this gluten-free bakery near me that it has gluten-free stuff and non-gluten-free stuff. And I walk in there, and the guy says, so this is our gluten-free stuff. I'm like, you know what? I want extra gluten. I want so much gluten that it comes out of my ears because I think the whole gluten-free thing is, unless you're allergic. I mean, if you're allergic to it, of course, that's different. But the whole idea that now there's no gluten, who cares? Just fine. You think George Washington cared about gluten? Abraham Lincoln?
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe.
Winston Churchill cared about gluten?
I don't know.
Nobody cares about gluten.
I don't know.
Since when did that become a thing?
I don't even know what gluten is.
I don't know what it is either. Stop that.
All right.
Mythbusters. Mythbusters. That show just keeps going. This is the 13th Mythbusters DVD.
13?
13.
Seriously?
Yeah, some of these things are fun. Like here, they I won't tell you what happened, but there's this thing that they have about whether you can with balloons. If you attach enough balloons to your car, will it protect you in a car crash?
What?
I thought that was kind of cute.
What?
Yeah, and they did a thing here too where they tried to make lasagna. They tried to make lasagna in a dishwasher.
What?
They did. Mythbusters. Now I'm not sure that was a myth. Never heard that one before.
They're just inventing myths to do weird things on the show.
So what? Sometimes it's kind of fun. Anyway, finally we have, I defy anybody to buy this. This is the explosive third season of Kendra on Top. Kendra Wilkinson was a girl next door, and she has since gone on to great heights as a woman who was cheated on by her husband with a transvestite. And now, of course, because she needs money, and he's a...
Can't she marry Rob Kardashian so we can merge the shows?
Exactly. Oh, you know what? How about just go away? How about just do nothing?
That would be preferable, but I'm not sure we can make that happen.
Anyway, so this is season 3 of this crappy show, which airs on We, which is the only network slumming enough that would actually hire her for anything. It's all about trying to get back together with Hank and going to therapy, and she's got a kid and all their struggles. And I just really if anybody wants to defend this show, Kendra on Top, season 3. gods at digigods.com. Because honestly, people, stop it.
All right, we've got 3 docs here to go through super fast. The Banksy, the legendary guerrilla artist, is the subject of Banksy Does New York, which they are calling a user-generated film. Anyway, this goes to this is basically the month of October 2013 when Banksy began what he called a residency in New York, where he was putting up literally a one gorilla exhibit each day, and nobody knew where it was going to happen, and it just became this like crazy mad world search for Banksy's daily exhibit. Really just an incredibly fascinating thing. Now Banksy, everybody knows who Banksy is now because he's been arrested. So Banksy's identity is public, and I honestly couldn't even tell you what his real name is anymore because it's like nobody cares who he really is. Everyone knows he's Banksy. But anyway, this is fascinating. And Banksy, for a moment, hit a few places in L.A. About 5 years ago? Was it when Banksy did he nailed a few places in L.A. and it was like, oh my gosh, look, Banksy's been here. It was kind of cool. Like, hey, he thought of us. But anyway, really interesting, fascinating look at the way that the line between graffiti and guerrilla art, and is it vandalism? Is it art? Is it a statement? Is it political? Is it really art? Really interesting subject. And then the other one I have here is Blu-ray of Albert Maisley's Iris. Even without his brother, Albert Maisley is an amazing filmmaker. You're looking basically at an 88-year-old documentarian making a movie about a 93-year-old legend of the New York style scene, and it's a great film. And I was not familiar with Iris Apfel before seeing this, but after you see this, you just realize what an amazing, cool, weird, funky, and totally rightfully influential figure she is. This is from Magnolia. It is a terrific Blu-ray. Mark.
Wade, gotta recommend Citizenfour.
Hey, the Oscar winner.
The Oscar winner.
And it was our LAFCA award winner.
Yes, it was. This is, of course, a documentary all about Edward Snowden, the whistleblower.
It's basically it's the interview sessions. I mean, it's the whole.
It's like a dude in a hotel room.
Yeah.
It's like Edward Snowden in a hotel room for
spilling his guts both to Laura Poitras and to Glenn Greenwald.
Yes, but they also have these wonderful. He's on the phone, kind of like talking, very edgy, urgent, real stuff because he's actually talking on the phone, really making history on the phone in that hotel room in that moment while the cameras are rolling.
It's great.
So this is great stuff. It's beautifully crafted. It's gripping. It's urgent. I just thought it was a terrific film. It's a very important film. Citizenfour. All I can say is if you haven't heard of it, then what's wrong with you? If you have heard of it and you haven't seen it, it's now on Blu-ray. So I would definitely check out the 2014 Oscar winner for Best Documentary, Citizenfour. There's some special features here, including deleted scenes, and a talk with Laura Poitras and Glenn Greenwald. And, got to check that out. Citizenfour.
Bravo. We're going to talk about new movies. Got a few of those this week before we get into our huge backlog of classic films. And I got a little one here called Where Hope Grows, which has one of those dove.org seals on it, which means it's faith-friendly, ages 12 plus.
Lame. The moment I see something that's dove-friendly,
I know.
Garbage.
Yeah, I know. You know what? It ain't bad. And I'll say this. The one thing that the so-called faith-based films have been doing and is trying to sort of crawl out of this ghetto that was created for them years ago, which is that, we got no money to make them, we got no money to market them, so we'll just sort of have people mention them and we'll show them to church groups and somewhere we'll make our money back from in the Bible Belt. And that's how a lot of these things worked until you started having movies like Courageous and Fireproof and a lot of these crossover things, which they're all still kind of formulaic in the sense where there's somebody who doesn't have anything going on in their life, and then they find somebody who takes them to church, and they suddenly find that there's more to life, and they stop drinking and they stop carousing, and they and then their life turns around, and that's exactly the formula that the target audience wants to see. But they're putting better casts in them, they're hiring better actors, they're hiring better directors, they're actually going to people who've made movies before, and the scripts are slowly improving. There's not a lot of diversity yet in the field, but they're getting better. And this one it's not bad. I mean, thanks mainly to a cast of real actors who do a pretty decent job. And the fact that you have a guy here a lot of these are, mainly pro athletes or retired pro athletes who are just, on a downward spiral, drinking too much or whatever. And that's the same one here. Is this guy? He's a former baseball player, and he's on the bad path, and he basically forms a friendship with a kid at the market who has Down syndrome. And as much as that sounds like, oh my gosh, that's the most cloying, obvious thing in the world. What a bunch of saccharine crap. They don't play it that way. And the fact that they were able to pull it off is written and directed by Chris Dowling, who I'm not very familiar with. But pulling that off is not an easy trick, and without being saccharine and cloying. So it's still formula. It's still primarily for that audience. But ultimately, I was shocked at how how this actually kind of worked, and it worked better than these films usually do. There's an audio commentary with Chris Dowling and actor David DeSantis, which is perfectly charming. So. Yeah, I'm. If you're a fan of this particular genre, I would say it's worth checking out. If you're not, wait for something more crossover to show up.
Wait, Nicolas Cage keeps making movies because he's got a bunch of tax debt he's got to pay back.
Oh my gosh!
And his latest one is The Runner, and The Runner is probably one of the better paycheck movies he's done, although it's really still not very good. It's all based around the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill, and Cage plays a Louisiana congressman who's trying to juggle the spill with some personal crises, family crises, and the thing with this movie is that it means well, and that's fine, but it's a script that's very heavy on meaningless exposition. The characters are really thinly drawn, and they're just really there just as chess pieces to kind of move around this plot. You don't really care about anybody. The guy who wrote it and directed it's his first film, Austin Stark. He's got a lot to juggle here. Simply can't do it. It's predictable. It's too thinly drawn. I just, it's a very self-serious, almost solemn movie that really does. It needed to be written, if not directed, at least written by somebody with a lot more ability to juggle serious themes and really get in depth on some of these issues, family issues, and also political issues. And Austin Stark is just not that guy. So I would pass on The Runner. And then before Wade talks about one of the most misbegotten films of the year, we have Samuel Jackson in Big Game. Now, Samuel Jackson, look, who doesn't love Samuel Jackson, right? But you know what? He's got, sometimes he does a lot of stuff that's just lame.
I know.
People, that's, we haven't talked about this in a while, but that's one of the beauties of AFM.
Yeah.
Is that you get to realize all the films, the crappy films that your favorite stars do that you will never see because they'll go straight to DVD. They'll get released overseas. They won't get released at all. And Big Game with Sam Jackson is one of them. Takes place in Finland. And, I just got to say, unless Sam Jackson wanted a free trip to Finland, I just don't see it. I mean, who doesn't love Victor Garber, Felicity Huffman? Jim Broadbent's in this, and that's fine. The cast is good, and who doesn't want to see Sam Jackson play the president of the United States? So, but still, it's just ridiculous.
You seen the trailer for Burnt? The Weinstein film with Bradley Cooper as the Michelin chef in Paris. Seen that? Seen that trailer?
I have not seen the trailer because it seems so uninteresting to me that I just don't. I looked at that thing. I'm like, Bradley Cooper, what are you doing? Where are you going? What's your deal?
Unbelievable! It is it looks so good.
Really?
It looks so good.
I have to watch it.
I read the synopsis. I did the same thing. I read the synopsis and I thought, really, this just sounds so.
Who directed it?
It sounds so unbelievably uninteresting. Directed by John Wells.
Oh, that was it. That's how it got my attention.
And
you know what, John Wells.
He can bring it.
There's something there.
There's something there.
He hasn't put it all together yet.
Not quite yet, but this may be the one. But the thing that really attracted me, it's written by Stephen Knight.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, now I got to watch it.
Right? Okay.
Fla.
So I looked. I was John Wells good, and then Stephen Knight. I was like, ooh, yeah,
that's good.
Dirty Pretty Things.
Yeah.
And
Locke.
And Locke, and I'm like, okay, now.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Right,
so
now I feel bad. I passed on.
And I'm like, okay, and Weinstein Company and Bradley Cooper, who's on a total roll, and I'm like, all right, yeah. And then I remembered, but Bradley Cooper also did Aloha.
Yeah, but
which
no.
is what I'm gonna talk about now.
No, Bradley Cooper did not do Aloha. He did.
Aloha did him.
Exactly. He did a Cameron Crowe film.
Yeah, basically. Well,
He wanted to work with Cameron Crowe, I'm sure.
That brings us to this. Hopefully, Burnt will erase this from people's memory. The trailer for Aloha was not bad. It basically was an interesting attempt at taking a single scene from the film, or at least the first part of the trailer was a single scene, which was very funny with all this quiet, and you had Alec Baldwin, and there was some yelling, and it was funny, it was good. And then the movie came out, and everyone and first of all, the Sony leak happened.
Yeah, you know who else didn't like the movie? You know who else didn't like the movie?
Yeah.
Amy Pascal.
Yeah.
She didn't like the movie.
She didn't like the movie either. And when the Sony leak happened, everyone realized, oh, this is a troubled film. They did the emails were scathing. The script didn't work, and all this stuff. And the movie just bombed. And I got to believe that this is like the end of Cameron Crowe. I just don't know. I mean, he has just been on such a straight stinker for like a decade now.
He should do an HBO miniseries.
Well, let me tell you something. What happened? I've kind of tried to put this together, and I hate to psychoanalyze filmmakers and actors and whatnot, but there's some interesting stuff that's going on. And Cameron Crowe won an Oscar, career peak, right, with Almost Famous. And then he made a remake with Vanilla Sky, which was a total paycheck gig. That was not a Cameron Crowe film. That was a remake of a great Spanish film, Open Your Eyes. And here he is with Tom Cruise. And it's almost like the Oscar and fame, and now he is seduced to do something completely outside his wheelhouse. At the same time, after many years, he was then married to Nancy Wilson of Heart. They had tried for many years to have kids. I think they did fertility and all this stuff, and wound up having twins. And around about the same time that Vanilla Sky tanks, and it was a few years later then that the whole family thing, the guy who couldn't grow up, right, Cameron Crowe, the eternal teenager, the marriage goes on the rocks and they get divorced. He hasn't made a good film since. So somewhere in there, he's lost his mojo. I don't know if it's the family thing, the kid thing, the age thing, the fame thing, the Oscar thing, but somewhere all these things have completely derailed the guy who did Say Anything, who wrote Fast Times, who did Singles and Almost Famous and all these cool movies. It's just he's not on his game anymore.
It seems like he's being seduced to material that does not play to his strengths.
He's doing the thing that I hate when filmmakers do, which is he's trying to be the person that people want him to be instead of just be the person that you are. Because that changes year to year. Stanley Kubrick in his later years was never going to be like, oh, they want me to do 2001 again. I guess I'll try. No, he was like, I did that. I'm going to do something else. And you're just, now I'm a 65, 70-year-old guy. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And, screw you if you don't like it. And you sort of have to have that attitude. You just got to personalize these things. But people are so afraid of failure that oftentimes it becomes a self-fulfilling thing. Anyway, you know what? The fact that Emma Stone plays someone who's like half Swedish or a third Swedish, quarter Welsh, and half Hawaiian, whatever it is that she is, that's like the least of this film's problems. People jumped all over this. Oh my gosh, Emma Stone she's not Hawaiian. This is like blackface. It's like, you know what? Honestly, truly, if you're gonna rip on this film, that's maybe number 27. That's way down the list. Anyway, Bill Murray is like the saving grace of this film. Alec Baldwin is like the semi-saving grace, but it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. It's too bad. Really unfortunate. Truly unfortunate.
Do an HBO miniseries.
That's what he should do. That's absolutely what he should do. All right, Mark. Let's see. We got classic movies. We got a ton of classic movies here to plow through in the last 15 or so minutes. What should we? You know what? Here we have some Kino Lorber stuff from last week left over. I'm going to go through this really quickly, and then I will unleash you on Barry Gordy's Gift to the World. Steve McQueen in The Reavers, which features one of the. This is 1969. Features a very early but wonderful John Williams score. It is a Western-ish, set in 1905. Essentially feels like a Western. Mark Rydell directed this, and Mark Rydell, of course, would go on to do On Golden Pond and a few other wonderful things before he tanked his career with For the Boys. This is based on a Faulkner novel, a lesser-known Faulkner novel, a less ostentatious and obnoxious Faulkner novel, and it is one of the last wonderful things that Steve McQueen did. So I think you got to check this out. It also has Will Geer and Sharon Farrell in it. It's a really sweet film. Also from the Kino Lorber Classics, Studio Classics line, The Revengers with Ernest Borgnine and Woody Strode. I love me a Woody Strode film. Daniel Mann directed this from 1972, right about the time that Westerns were on their way out. Ernest Borgnine, always wonderful. William Holden is wonderful in this as well. It's a good, solid kind of old school Western bleeding into the 1970s. The Couch Trip. Oh my gosh. What a dreadful movie this is. Donna Dixon and her husband Dan Aykroyd share the screen with Walter Matthau, and Michael Ritchie, for some reason, decided to do this. This is 1988. Michael Ritchie kind of had a thing going on again at the time because of the Fletch films.
I love the Fletch films.
I do too, but this is not a Fletch film. Anyway, this is just a really, really misbegotten film, and just should not have been made. So, that's Donna Dixon. Kind of killed her film career, but not that she cares. She's married to Dan Aykroyd.
She was so hot.
Can you believe that marriage is still lasting?
I know.
Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah,
who would have said that Donna Dixon and Dan Aykroyd is the longest-lasting marriage in Hollywood?
Well, who would have thought that Donna Dixon, who was like so smoking hot,
would have married Dan Aykroyd.
Beautiful women of that era,
yeah,
in terms of film, would wind up marrying a Ghostbuster.
Yeah, but then it was like 8 years
and
later.
Then he got fatter and fatter.
Yeah, but that was the thing. Like 8 years later, when you see them on red carpets, Donna Dixon's still just screamingly smoking hot. Just like she was on she was
Bosom
on
Buddies.
Bosom Buddies with Tom Hanks, and she's still unbelievably gorgeous. And Dan Aykroyd had put on like 175 pounds by that point, and I thought, no, she's so going to leave him now because he's not really making the big movies anymore. He's lost, and that's me judging her, thinking she's just some Hollywood bimbo who's just going to cavort from one star to the next to keep her career afloat. And son of a gun, she just gave up her career, and she's just loving being married to Dan Aykroyd, no matter how fat he gets. It's unbelievable. God
he is
bless
Dan
them
Aykroyd.
both.
He's got to be entertaining.
God bless them both. But what a great couple that's turned out to be. I'm so impressed. And then Michael Ritchie also did Diggstown, which was another misbegotten failure, although not as bad as the Couch Trip. You kind of like this, right?
I kind of do.
A lot of people do. James Woods and Lou Gossett Jr. Yeah, a lot of people kind of like this. It's got a kind of funky vibe to it, a funky little heisty con man thing going on. It never really worked for me. But whatever. That's just me. It's got a making of featurette on it, and a little cross promotional plug for the Couch Trip. And then lastly, this is a wonderful, wonderful movie. This is La Sapienza by Eugene Green. An unusual Kino Lorber release. This is not part of the Studio Classics line, but it is a gorgeous Blu-ray. And this is kind of a. You basically take a trip to this city in Italy where these two guys are trying to put their lives back together again. They're sort of trying to find some kind of meaning in life again. They're sort of trying to have some sort of they're sort of trying to escape their existential crisis. And without giving anything away, this refers in a way to a certain architectural wonder in Rome that plays a part here, and it is just one of these really, really sweet. It's a really just a really interesting movie, worth discovering. If you haven't heard of it, if you haven't seen it, definitely try to check it out. If you haven't heard of Eugene Green, there's an interview on here with him as well, and it's a really interesting, worthwhile, very lyrical film, La Sapienza by Eugene Green on Blu-ray.
Wait, I have to talk about The Last Dragon, because you know how much I love Motown and Stax and all those great, cool record labels from the 70s and 60s and 80s.
Barry Gordy.
This is, you know what? The film's
it's
actually...
not just The Last Dragon, it's Barry
Gordy's
The
Last Dragon, which is to say that the movie's backed by Motown Records, which means that Motown Records supplied a lot of the music. And not that it's not great music, but it's not a reason to make a movie because you happen to own the record company that's providing the music. This is it's not quite blaxploitation, and it's not quite good. It's about this this karate master. Our hero learns that he's like so good that the only thing that's left to be learned can only be found from within.
Oh yeah. I've heard of that.
So, and if he learns what he needs to learn,
once in a while.
If he learns what he needs to learn, he will get the glow.
No kidding.
And you know what happens at the end of the movie? The guy glows like he's radioactive because he got the glow. Okay, that's how good he is as a karate master.
Oh,
so, look, here's the thing.
This is so.
It doesn't look. It doesn't
so
take
Xanadu.
It doesn't take itself seriously. It's kind of it's kind of funny. It's got a lot of high energy.
Total cult film. Silly
romance. It is very culty. So I have to say that if you like really cheesy movies from that era, I think you could do a lot worse. Actually, you have to watch it like you watch Xanadu.
Yeah.
Right, a movie that is not
Which
very
predates
good.
it by 5 years.
That's right,
yeah.
but the movie's not very good. I mean, this says 1985, but the movie's not very good, but you're sort of enjoying it on that level.
Yeah.
So I would give Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon just a really cheesy thumbs up its own butt.
Okay. Got some MGM limited edition collection releases here. They, of course, are released by Fox. These are all MOD, manufacture on demand, DVD-Rs. Be aware of that when you get them. So, it's a middling batch. Robert Englund in Dance Macabre. This is when Robert Englund was trying to capitalize on the fact that he'd been Freddy and he was just doing, anything that came along. This was actually shot in the Soviet Union. This is 1992. It was right about the time that the Soviet Union collapsed. So this is one of the last, maybe the last American film shot in the Soviet Union before it became Russia again, and all of its surrounding republics. It's basically a murder thing set around a ballet school. It's kind of standard. They shot there because it was cheap. Hey Babu Reba is kind of a weird cult thing. From 1987. This is a coming-of-age thing that was set in 1953, written and directed by Jovan Acin, and it's a Yugoslavian film, which of course is another country that doesn't exist anymore, and presumably that Belgrade, which is now Serbia, so it would be a Serbian film today. But Jovan Acin, however you pronounce his name, has not really been a factor since. There were no other movies, but this one kind of captured a moment. It felt like one of those coming-of-age American films set in the 1950s, and for that reason, it sort of crossed over. So, Hey Babu Reba has a cool title too. It's easy to remember. Judd Nelson in Every Breath, along with Joanna Pacula and Patrick Bashau. Directed by Steve Bing, Mark. The same
Steve Bing,
who is now basically a producer and is best known basically for
dated
Elizabeth Hurley.
Elizabeth Hurley, yeah.
So that Steve Bing directed this, and it's really terrible. It's one of these wannabe noirs that just never really feels like a noir, and nothing ever in it ever really feels very urgent. But Judd Nelson. He co-wrote this thing with Steve Bing and Andrew Fleming, and they own it. So there you go. Whatever happened to Brad Cravoy, by the way? He was a producer on this as well. Remember, he was producing.
I remember that name.
He produced everything at a certain point. Two more here quickly from the MGM Limited Edition collection. Sorry, Below the Belt is okay. This is interesting. This was made in 1980. Film that completely escaped me at the time, but it's got an interesting little low-budget indie cast, including Shirley Stoller and Dolph Sweet. Dolph Sweet, who was on the television series with Give Me a Break with Nell Carter.
Oh, my God. I haven't thought about that show in years.
I know. Anyway, interesting little 1980s era indie, which sort of is part of that whole indie thing. And it all kind of dovetails into women's wrestling, which is something I'm particularly fond of, so that tells you why I've got a Dolph Sweet spot for that movie. You like that? Dolph Sweet spot? You like how I did that?
I don't get it.
I didn't even have to write that one. And then lastly, Madison with Jim Caviezel and Bruce Dern. This was from 2004, about a decade ago, and it kind of feels like it. There's anything to do with racing always has kind of a marginal audience, but somehow there's always somebody to carry these things over. Heart Like a Wheel, the Jonathan Kaplan film, is maybe my favorite one of those. Anyway, this is about hydroplaning, so it's kind of like a drag racing movie. And it's got all the same pros and cons to it. But you know what? The only really bad thing about this is that it has Jake Lloyd in it. And Jake Lloyd is just the worst actor of all time, that poor kid. And this is around the time that he did that horrible Star Wars Episode 1, and not good. But anyway, Jim Caviezel's good, Mary McCormack is good, Paul Dooley's always wonderful. So if the subject matter appeals to you, these are all from the MGM limited edition collection on DVD-R, MOD, manufacture on demand.
Wait, here's a movie that I guarantee you have not heard of, but it's got a cult following called Psycho Beach Party. Psycho Beach Party is a love it or hate it kind of a parody about movies from the 50s and 60s, directed by a guy named Robert Lee King, who provides a commentary track on the Blu-ray. It's based on a stage play by a guy named Charles Bush, and it's about this girl who loves to surf, lives in Malibu. She has a split personality, which becomes part of the humor. She becomes the suspect of a bunch of murders in Malibu. Don't worry about the plot. Just worry about the fact that there's a lot of crazy humor, transvestite humor, which, with Caitlyn Jenner, the whole trans community.
Sure.
They're in the news now.
Sure.
But really, this is before, this is way before the Caitlyn Jenner,
of course,
trans awakening we now have. This is more the silly, divine hairspray, John Waters sort of like, trans treatment. But it's still kind of funny. People really like this movie. It kind of came and went, but it has a little bit of a cult following. So maybe on Blu-ray it can be rediscovered. Psycho Beach Party, funny stuff, just really wacky, crazy, unique stuff. Robert Lee King didn't necessarily to go on to have a career that maybe we would have liked, especially after coming out with this. But if you want to see something I guarantee you I've never seen before, Psycho Beach Party.
Nice. And then we're gonna wrap out with a listener mail and some Olive. Listener mail. Some Olive titles, really quickly. Olive keeps licensing great stuff, most of it from Paramount. Not all films that I necessarily like, but certainly all of them worth paying attention to. From 1995, Alicia Silverstone in The Babysitter has become kind of a little cult thing. Directed by Guy Fairland and written by Robert Coover. Good performance here by J.T. Walsh in particular, for people who were J.T. Walsh fans and Alicia Silverstone fans. We also have The Sender, which is a 1982 film with a better-than-average cast. Zelko Ivanek and Catherine Harold. It's sort of a mid-level thriller from that period. Sidney Lumet's Daniel with Timothy Hutton was a really good film from 1983. This was his follow-up to The Verdict. And Timothy Hutton was, trying to sort of grunge it up after Ordinary People a few years later. Daniel is, of course, based on the E.L. Doctorow novel, The Book of Daniel, which is about the Julius and Ethel Rosenberg case, and it's a really underrated film. I think people were kind of ready to jump on Sidney Lumet at the time, but it's a really good film. It's a powerful film.
Love Sidney Lumet.
The Singing Detective with Robert Downey Jr., believe it or not, from 2003. I was not a huge fan of this, but I'm not a big fan of the source material, to be honest. And with the whole Dennis Potter thing, even the original BBC series that this is based on didn't really do anything for me, and I thought this was a complete mess, even though I'm a huge fan of Keith Gordon as a director. The same Keith Gordon, of course, who was in Christine and Back to School, the Rodney Dangerfield film, has turned into a really good director, but he just doesn't do a lot generally. And even though I think it's a really I give him all the credit in the world. He's not the problem here. It's just I don't care for the source material. But for those who do, it's out on Blu-ray. Last American Virgin, not one of my favorite films, but people love it. It is a Golan Globus canon 1982 classic. Boaz Davidson wrote and directed it. People just remember this film for some crazy reason because it, I guess, captures the 80s. It's one of those classic sex comedies from the era. So knock yourselves out. But the one I love, and not because it's good, because it's terrible, but I do love it. This is, believe it or not, Mark, this is written and directed by Mickey Rose. But do you know who produced this film?
Mickey Rose?
Alan Smithee. It's produced by Alan Smithee.
Now, I didn't realize that Alan Smithee was a PGA or producer.
He's not. This is the only film produced by Alan Smithee. There are tons that have Alan Smithee directing credits. This is the only film with a producer Alan Smithee credit.
Now, Alan Smithee is the DGA
It's the pseudonym when you want to take your name off of a film. So I don't know the story there. I've never been able to get to the bottom of the story, but I remember I was in I was in junior high school at the time this film came out, and went and saw it with a friend of mine, and we laughed ourselves to tears. This is essentially a pre-Scream, all of those horror film spoofs. This is the original horror film spoofing all the stuff, all the slasher films from the late 70s, Halloween, Friday the 13th, all that stuff, Slumber Party Massacre, all that junk that sort of came out in the late 70s, early 80s. This spoofs it. And it is outrageously funny. It is stupid. It is lowbrow. It is totally crude. When the guy is, the voiceover of the killer is totally ADR'd. It's terribly dubbed. But when he wears galoshes, he chases them through the hallways of the schools. The jokes are obvious, but I still laugh at this thing because I was a dumb kid and I saw it and it made me laugh. But Student Body is a movie I never thought would ever make it to DVD or Blu-ray. Is out on Blu-ray. Thank you, Olive. You have resurrected a part of my youth that I never thought would be resurrected.
Mickey Rose. Now, I believe Mickey Rose, isn't he the only guy ever to have a co-writer credit with Woody Allen?
Oh, I don't know.
Hang on for a second. Now Mickey Rose I think he got a co-writer credit on Take the Money and Run. But
really?
Then, what's his name got a co-writer credit? Hang on. What are you doing? Is that listener?
That's our letter. That's our listener mail this week.
I hit the mic.
Yeah, I know.
All right, let me check. There may be another one. Because I know Woody has not taken co-writer credits very often.
No, not very often. You want me to vamp?
Yeah, no, I'm looking this up. Take the Money and Run.
Take the Money and Run.
Well, read the thing.
Okay, well, the listener mail. All right, I'll go with it. Hello there, Wade and Mark. My name is Deji, all the way from Nigeria. I'm a big fan of the podcast. Wade, why do you hate Zack Snyder so much? I can't believe, even in Nigeria, my obsessions have gotten there. You've called him a hack a few times. Is this personal? I think that's a bit of a hyperbole to call him a hack when Uwe Boll is still working. Second question, do you think it's a good idea for studios to keep sticking their noses in the process of movie making, taking away a director's power to express his or her artistic vision? I ask this question mainly because of what Fox Studios did to Josh Trank. As we now know, the Fantastic Four movie we all saw was not Trank's movie. Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. P.S. Mr. Major, you should voice a villain in an animated movie. God bless you guys. I am thrilled that we are known in Nigeria. Deji, thank you for the great email and also being a part of the Facebook group, which I urge everyone to do. And by the way, send us Vox boxes and emails to gods@digigods.com, gods@digigods.com. So Deji, in answer to the question, no, Zack Snyder is somebody that I piled on basically after Sucker Punch because I hated that movie so much, and I'm not a fan of him, particularly as a director. I think he's limited. But I think I pile on him more than Uwe Boll because he directs studio stuff, because he's like a go-to guy when, as we talked about last week, people like Lone Scherfig don't get work from studios, and they should, and they give it instead to, to people like Zack Snyder because they talk a good game and they're good in the room. And, I'd like to see Zack Snyder really shouldn't be directing anything that shouldn't first go to somebody like Mimi Leader, frankly. So that's part of my beef. I just think there are better people out there. But for the second one, and I'm going to look into that animated movie villain thing. That could be a really great Second Life career for me. But the second part of it, studios sticking their noses in the creative development of movies. They've always done it. They'll always do it. They do it more now than they used to because they're marginalizing. They're trying to get around having to deal with talent. With having on-the-lot deals with directors and actors. They don't want to have to contract with people. They want to contract with ideas, because if you're contracted with Martin Scorsese, he may die someday. He may, come up with a bad movie once in a while, but if Marvel is what you're using to brand yourself rather than talent, then it's easier just to hire some hack who can be attached to the Marvel brand and nobody will really care. And what they want is for people to go to see a movie and not care who's in it or who directed it, but to care about the brand, the franchise. That's what they're going for. And I think that's doomed to failure because, Trank is really not an example of, he's an example of the latter, not the former. Trank is a guy who made a kind of a mediocre independent film and went on to do a movie that was way outside his ability. I'm sure we'll see his version someday, but I can't imagine it's going to be very good and all that different. You have thoughts?
I have many thoughts, Wade.
Okay.
I think that what happens is that there's this trend now to take these directors like Colin Trevorrow and Josh Trank. they come up with some independent film and they suddenly give them $175 million and say, here, our next tentpole film. Well, Colin Trevorrow, who was just named the director of Star Wars 9, he obviously can handle it, but that doesn't mean everybody else can handle it. And while I'm sure that and the thing with Fox is that they're supposedly not very director friendly with their tentpole stuff, and I don't think that Josh Trank had the talent or the temperament to do the film just in general, let alone be under the thumb of Fox executives. So, Trank, I think, is a guy who will wind up being temporarily the exception to the rule, although hopefully they'll go about and they'll find really qualified directors who are really good at these films, have a flavor for the material, and give it to them regardless of how cool they may seem to the fanboys. And then what happens is you get something like Pixels, which was directed by Christopher Columbus, and Christopher Columbus is an old school guy, and he does Pixels and it tanks. So now, and that's not going anywhere. That's not going to be a perennial. So now you get these studios thinking, we give it to an old school guy like Chris Columbus, he shanks it, and we give Jurassic Park to Colin Trevorrow, and he knocks it out of the park.
Nobody knows anything, as William Goldman
Nobody knows anything.
So, there it is. All right, with that, that's our show.
The balcony is closed.
Balcony's closed. Oh, that's somebody else's slap.
I
No,
know.
no.